going to read an article tonight that was written pretty long time ago, entitled, "Why Don't We Indeed?" Once upon a time, I made a trip to the land of everywhere. I had purchased my ticket, and as I boarded the plane, I noticed that none of the passengers wore shoes. Puzzled over this, dismissing my fellow passengers as a possible cult, I was shaken even greater when I saw that the stewardesses all padded down the aisles without shoes. Confused and bewildered, I made the trip. Leaving the plane and walking into the airport of everywhere, I was dumbfounded to observe that everyone was unshod. Not a soul wore shoes. As I made my way into town, the bus driver pumped his pedal with his feet unbound. The bankers and businessmen walked the streets in pretty pinstripes, but no shoes. Finally, getting off the bus, I took a man by the arm and asked, "I'm sorry, sir, but I'm new in this town. Do the people here believe in shoes?" "Believe in shoes? Why, of course. Shoes are wonderful creations. Shoes are the very first item in our creed. They protect the foot from the cold and hot streets, scuffing, stubbing, and sharp objects. They improve posture, facilitate sports, and improve our social relationships. Shoes are fundamental to society." I thanked him with a smile, but as he walked away, I could not help noticing that he wore no shoes. I was astounded. Making my way down the street, I noticed an enormous bronze shoe mounted upon a sparkling white marble base. The monument stood before a very hallowed-looking hall with the words "Shoe Factory" over the door. My questions would finally be answered. Throwing open the doors and walking in, I found I was in a school. Peering into the rooms, I heard teachers intoning and speaking about different grades of leather, stitching, and resoling. Every room was filled with eager young people, rapidly taking notes about shoes and talking about shoes. I stopped a student in the hall and asked, "Is this a shoe factory?" "Why, yes, it is, sir." "Well, where are the shoes?" I asked. "We do not really make shoes here, sir. We talk about shoes and learn about shoes." But I asked, "If shoes are so important to you, why don't you wear any? Why is the entire town barefooted?" "That, sir," he said with a sad smile, "is the real question. Why don't we indeed?" But the young man had to go to attend his class on Tennis Shoes 101, and he hurried away. Tired and confused, I walked into the auditorium and sat down. A crowd had already gathered, and a speaker got up and introduced the lecturer of the day, a renowned expert on shoes. After a few minutes of very flattering introduction, the good doctor arose to speak. His words were forceful and powerful. He quoted extensively from memory on the subject of shoes. His arguments in favor of shoes were unanswerable. Some in the audience were moved to tears. Following his oration, which lasted 2 hours, the crowd gave him a standing ovation. But oddly enough, no one wore any shoes, including the speaker. Sadly, I made my way back to the airport, passed on the streets by all manner of men and women without shoes on their scuffed, bleeding, dirty, and calloused feet. Then I glimpsed through a window a most marvelous sight. Through the dirty glass of the Down at Hills storefront, I saw an old man cobbling shoes, and he had shoes on his feet. I ran into the store and asked him why he did not make available the shoes he so expertly made. "Nobody wants to wear these shoes," he said. "They just like to talk about them." I asked him how much he would charge me for them, and he said, "If you can get folks to wear them, I will give them to you." With my arms filled, I ran out into the streets and grabbed the first person I could and said, "Look, here are shoes." "Why, so they are," the gentleman replied, somewhat embarrassed. "Try on a pair. I feel confident in this pile we can find you a pair that will fit you well." "Well, I don't rightly know," he hesitated. "You never know about shoes or those that claim they have just what you need. You know, of course, my mother never wore shoes, and she lived to be 70 years old. No, thank you. I don't believe I will." With astonishment, I grabbed person after person and tried to persuade them to try on the shoes I had piled on the sidewalk. Each one, with embarrassment, walked away barefooted. It just isn't done this way. The best families, you know, are barefooted. I know that shoes are the very best thing I could possibly get, but you know how it is. Maybe after I've raised my family and gotten established in business, I could buy a pair. They're free? Well, not today. Maybe some other time when it is more convenient. With frustration and despair, I returned the shoes to the old cobbler, who placed them on his shelf sadly. "Sorry, son, but keep trying. Maybe we will find one who would rather wear shoes than go barefooted." "But why? Why won't they wear shoes?" I cried. "Why don't we indeed?" he replied. Most of the people that we come into contact with every day are lost. This article, while written about shoes, is not what we're really supposed to focus on. This article is get us to think about our need to obey God. We know that most of the people that we come in contact to are going down the wrong path. And the Lord tells us in Matthew 7:13 and 14, enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there be many who go in by it. Because narrow is the gate, and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. So if you're here tonight, we don't need to make excuses on reasons why we couldn't be obedient to God and obey the plan of salvation. So if you've not become a Christian yet, or maybe become a Christian and fallen away, and need the prayers of the brethren, you have an opportunity tonight to come forward as we stand and sing.